Hello and welcome to the Frame Technologies podcast. This episode is going to be all about the National Self-Build and Renovation Centre, or as it's more commonly known, the NSBRC. The NSBRC is the UK's only permanent venue for independent home building advice and support. It was established in 2007 and it's helped almost 250,000 visitors build their dream home or extend an existing property. It features several full-size houses, interactive educational zones, life-size exhibits, and a trade village which has over 200 specialist exhibitors, and they exhibit on all aspects of self-building and renovation. If you read the Frame Technologies case studies on the website, you'll often find reference to the NSBRC in the early stages of self-builders' journeys. It's usually one of the first stops before the project really begins. There's a free help desk, and the experts are often there to discuss your plans and ideas, share their experiences, and signpost you to the relevant professional services that can help make your project a success. They also run a series of online webinars that you can attend, and on top of that, they have some standout events, the NSBRC shows, and that is when they bring together all their exhibitors in one space. An NSBRC show is a brilliant opportunity to find out more about the self-building journey. Shows are usually held over 2 days, and they feature an amazing lineup of exhibitors and experts who will be all on hand to share their advice. You can also find Frame Technologies Managing Director Simon Orrells at these shows. He is always there, offering one-to-one appointments and free advice about your self-build project. Suffice to say, a visit to the NSBRC, therefore, is for many self-builders an important step, and that's why we thought it would be a great topic for this episode. We're really grateful that Managing Director Harvey Fremlin has managed to spare us some time in his very busy schedule to talk to us about the NSBRC and how it can help people on their self-build journey. We are days away from the October show, which is taking place on Friday the 13th and Saturday the 14th of October. It's held over 2 days and it has an unrivaled lineup of exhibitors and experts, and they'll all be on hand to share their advice. It's an unmissable event for anyone thinking of self-building or renovating their home. Harvey's on the line right now. Hello, Harvey.
Hi, Melissa.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's really busy at the centre, and we're really grateful that you can spare a moment to talk to us today. Thank you for being here.
Nice to see you again, and thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this podcast.
The NSBRC is a fantastic resource for so many self-builders on their project, but I imagine listening to this podcast, we've got some people who are just in the very early stages of considering a self-build project, and they're probably yet to find out how useful and important the NSBRC can be to shaping their self-build journey. So I just thought we'd start off by discussing the NSBRC. So could you tell us a little bit more about the centre and what it does?
The National Self-Build and Renovation Centre, or NSBRC, in purposes of saving a bit of time each time I refer to it. We opened our doors in January 2007. So last year we celebrated 15 years of the centre. In January coming up will be 17 years of being open. And we are unique in the UK. We are the only permanent visitor centre designed to help individuals who are looking to undertake a self-build project or a significant renovation project. We see about 20,000 people through our doors each year. That does vary slightly from year to year. We've obviously had the pandemic in recent times, which has meant that we've had to do things in quite a different way, which I'll probably talk about later. But yeah, on average, it's probably about 20,000 visitors that we see coming through our doors each year.
And who do you have exhibiting at the centre?
So we have over 220 permanent exhibitors displaying a range of products, technologies, solutions, services that they offer, which are designed specifically to help people who are undertaking self-build projects. So I've known Simon at the NSBRC for many years, and Frame Technologies have been an exhibitor here for many years, I think about 10 years. And what's been nice actually is to see Frame Technologies display grow, both in terms of size and presence that they have in the centre, but also the involvement that Simon and his team have with us. So Simon is a regular contributor to our shows and workshops, often providing masterclass talks and case study presentations. And also, I'm aware that he's very involved with the Structural Timber Association, so often provides impartial advice with his STA hat on as well. And most of our exhibitors are featured in what we call the Trade Village, which is like a permanent exhibition area that we have, which takes up about half of our huge hall that we operate in. But Simon also has an exhibit in our educational zone, which takes a potential self-builder through all the key stages of a self-build journey. And we've got 8 different wall sections, which are full-size cross-sectional sections showing the different building system options that people have to consider, which is one of the big decisions that self-builders will make, is how are they going to build. And Frame Technologies have actually built the timber frame part of that educational zone as well.
So Harvey, you've had quite an interesting journey yourself into the self-build industry. You went from acting to building, which some might think is an unusual jump, but you've got a great story about that, haven't you?
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange entry, really. So I've been here since 2008, so a long time myself. Before that, I had various roles in sales, customer service roles. But in my mid-20s, I actually decided that I wanted to be an actor. So I moved to London and went to a school called the Poor School and trained as an actor for 2 years. And the idea behind that school was you trained in the evenings and weekends so that you could work during the day. I picked up an agent and worked as a kind of struggling actor in some fairly unglamorous roles for about a year. And then I had a moment where I think I realized I had to decide whether this was going to be my life, and that the risk with that was being impoverished, or to move on and do something a bit different. I was at a bit of a crossroads. So I ended up working for my uncle's construction firm. He was a local developer, for about 6-7 months on building sites, working with my cousin, knocking up mix for the bricklayers, moving stuff around. And it was a really enjoyable experience, hard work. And I realized that probably wasn't my calling, but it was a really great time for me. And then I applied for a job here, walked through the doors, and was just wowed by what the centre has to offer. 2 things became obvious really quickly, actually. My life on a building site, albeit for a short period of time, would be really valuable in terms of being able to emphasise with how self-builders were going to be, the things that they would be seeing and going through on site. And also, I hope that career in acting, as short as it was, hasn't been wasted, because I find myself quite often doing presentations, which I really enjoy, and doing things like this.
So you've really seen the journey the NSBRC has taken since it opened. What's that journey been like?
So the NSBRC was actually founded by BuildStore. And most people, when they begin looking at the self-build market, will find BuildStore very quickly. They were then, and they still are, the market leaders in the provision of self-build finance. So they're not a lender, but they work with a panel of lenders and building societies to provide specialist self-build mortgage products and loan products that allow people to undertake projects. They operated the centre for many years. Back in 2014, myself and some colleagues actually took on we created a new company and took on the operation of the centre as an employee-owned business. So that was one big change, is that myself and the team own and operate the company. We've done so for 9 years now. We'll be celebrating 10 years of employee ownership in 2024. In terms of how the centre's changed physically, if you kind of walk in initially, a lot of the things will be the same. So we've still got the kind of key show houses that we have in the key educational areas. Actually, when you start to look a bit closely, it is constantly evolving and improving in my eyes as well. So the educational journey that I mentioned earlier, where you walk through the key stages of a self-build project, that is constantly evolving, improving, because building regulations change. So the exhibits that we show we need to ensure that they're matching the current regulations. Again, in the renovation house that we have, which is another key educational area, new technologies and solutions come along to, for example, to tackle damp. And so it's constantly evolving and changing. And then the Trade Village, which is where we host all of our exhibitors, that is so our retention rate, which is the number of exhibitors that choose to stay with us beyond their contracts and remain with us, is very, very high. It's about 85%. So don't have a huge turnover in terms of the exhibitors, because the exhibitors, they have their products on show here, and it really is a showcase that they want to send their potential clients or customers to see. They're at a very high standard. And so quite frequently they will be improving or changing their display. So as a visitor, have a 3-year journey from that eureka moment of, do you know what, self-build is for us. We want to go ahead and do this, whatever that inspiration was, to the day they move into their completed home. Could quite easily be a 2-3 year journey.
And it's clear that having a wide variety of exhibitors, build partners who are going to update their stands regularly, and really engaging displays that help self-builders really move that project along, and it's why you have that 2 to 3 year build journey. And of course, following that journey, you've seen the way that the self-build industry has changed and developed. Have self-builders changed their approach, their goals, or their intentions in those years?
It's a great question. So the number of people doing self-build projects in the UK hasn't changed dramatically. It's around about 12 to 13,000 people that complete a self-build project each year, and it stayed relatively constant. Now, we would like to see that grow, and there are some things that are happening now that hopefully will allow that to grow. And we know that that number is pretty accurate based on VAT reclaims and other factors that are looked at on an annual basis. So what are the things that have changed since I've been at the centre and the centre opened? One of those, for sure, is focus on sustainability and energy efficiency. And that has rocketed in terms of the priorities for people in the last few years. So with the war in Ukraine and the cost of living crisis and the energy resilience issues that we're all very familiar with, has meant that people are very, very aware of their energy consumption and energy bills. So creating and designing the most energy efficient properties is really high up on people's agendas now. And then in terms of the number of people that do self-build, we know that the demand is far higher than the people that actually end up doing it each year. So I think the other big change for the sector is the right to build registers. So this was a piece of legislation that was passed through Parliament a few years ago by Richard Bacon MP after a paper that he wrote for Boris Johnson, who was Prime Minister at the time. And it means that each local authority, every local authority, has to hold a register of people who are interested in a self-build or a custom-build plot in that authority, and they need to meet that demand in their own planning numbers. So that's been a big change. Now we know that some local authorities have really embraced that and been really proactive and encouraged people to join the register and help them find plots, whereas many others have taken the opposite stance and have made it fairly difficult for people, either applying fees, which is not in the spirit of the legislation, applying local persons, which means that if you didn't grow up and live in that area, you can't join the register. Again, not in the spirit of the register. So we think there'll be some amendments to that legislation coming through fairly soon that will help people. But what it has shown is the demand for self-build plots is growing, and the awareness that it is an option is growing for sure. And that is obviously helped also by TV programs like Grand Designs and the multiple TV programs that we see about house building. And people are realizing that there is another option than just going into the open market and buying a home built by some of the large developers.
So now, in the current day, in the NSBRC as we find it, what can a visitor expect to see on their visit? What's on offer for them?
What can a visitor expect? It depends on, so what we do is when they arrive at reception, we'll ask a few contact details and a little bit about their project. So what kind of project do they do? A new build, renovation, undecided. If they're going through planning, what point in the planning process are they currently at, and roughly what their budget is. And the reason we ask those questions is because it helps us and our exhibitors to give them and send them the best information. As they walk through the doors, the first thing they'll see is 3 big show homes now in the centre. So most people kind of have a bit of a wow moment if they've never been to the centre before. Also, right in the middle of the centre is a help desk. So we offer free impartial advice to anyone. And so people can come with just a simple list of questions with some sketches, their plans and drawings, and we will sit down and help kind of move them on along their journey and signpost them to the most appropriate people. I think it's important to say that one of our key promises is that as the centre is that we are completely independent. So we will offer impartial advice. We don't get kickbacks or commissions or retainers from any of our exhibitors that display here at the centre. So people can trust that the advice that we're giving them is sound and worth following. And then we have the 2 main educational zones that I mentioned earlier. So one dedicated to people going on a new build experience, one dedicated to people who are looking to improve, extend existing properties. And then we have the huge trade village. And as I said, that is a constantly evolving area which shows the very best technologies, products, heating solutions, everything that you would need really when you're creating your self-build home. So alongside the fact that we're open all year round, we have a full program of workshops, surgeries and shows. And the workshops tend to have different focuses. So we run eco workshops, we do passive house workshops in partnership with the Passive House Trust. And we run 3 main shows each year, typically in January, May and October.
So as I mentioned in my introduction, the NSBRC has some key shows which are really great for self-builders in the early stages. Could you tell us more about them and why is it self-builders love them so much?
So we're actually approaching our October show right now, and the difference between arriving here on a show day and a normal day is that on a normal day, most of the exhibits are not staffed by people. So you will walk around with a barcode scanner and you will scan the companies that you want information from, and they will send it directly to you. On a show day, most of those stands are staffed by people. And interestingly, those companies tend to send technically minded people rather than salespeople, because no one wants to be sold to these days. No one enjoys that as an experience. But we know that self-builders will arrive with a whole host of really sensible questions as they're going on this huge steep learning curve, and they need to absorb as much information as they can. So they are free to ask as many questions as they want and really do their research. We have 2 theatres, the Build It Theatre and the Sustainability Theatre, that have a kind of 8 to 10 talks on each day with a range of topics and things, so people can look at the programme. And then another lovely part of the show, people can have free one-to-one consultations. Project management, design, landscape gardening, VAT reclaim. So there's a whole really, really valuable day spent, at the centre. We do walking tours of our educational zones, which really brings them to life. And again, you get the opportunity to ask questions whilst you're going through those tours, relevant to your own project. So sometimes, depending on what stage people are at their journey, they do leave and say, Harvey, that's fantastic, but I've ended up with more questions than I arrived with. And that is understandable, because what you need to do is kind of remember why you're doing the project and then start to narrow down your decisions. So before you do that, you really do need to do your research and ask as many questions and get as much information as you can. So coming to the show in October is the absolutely ideal opportunity to do that.
And of course, we've got this October show coming up. What can you expect from an October show? What can a typical October show present to a new self-builder?
Our October show is Friday the 13th and Saturday the 14th of October. So it's a 2-day event. Tickets are completely free if you book them in advance on our website. So that is top tip number 1. Visit our website, nsbrc.co.uk, and you can get free tickets. And it is so worth the visit. We don't charge for parking, free on-site parking as well. And as mentioned earlier, really huge range of talks, seminars, one-to-ones, guided educational tours. It is the perfect opportunity to arrive early, come early as well. Our first talk start at 10 o'clock in the morning, and just gather as much information and advice as you can in that day. And actually, we've got a number of hotels. So we are based on junction 16 of the M4, just off the junction. There's 3 hotels very, very close to us as well. So quite often we find people actually book in at the hotel and they make a full weekend of it. And it is just such a brilliant opportunity to speak to people face to face, all in under one huge 67,000 square foot roof. So that is probably the main reasons for coming to a show day over a normal Wednesday or something.
It's seeming pretty clear what the NSBRC does, but there's something quite interesting and unique about the NSBRC, isn't there?
Yeah, so not everyone realises that we're employee owned. And when they do find out, everyone's always really interested in it. So, to be honest, back in 2014, before we became employee owned, I probably could have spoken about Waitrose and the John Lewis partnership, and most people, that's what comes to mind. And what they think about is that Waitrose, John Lewis give great customer service, and the staff care about what they're doing. And hopefully, we have the same principle. In reality, we've gone much further. So we genuinely own the business outright, and and operate it, and we get to make all the decisions. And it creates a lovely culture where no matter what role the staff are doing in the team, they arrive to work thinking and behaving like an owner of the business. And it just, I believe, means that we get to offer an outstanding customer experience to people that come through our doors. And don't take my word for it. Have a look at our Google reviews, and hopefully you'll get the sense that people really value and appreciate what they can find here at the centre. The other thing that I think is a bit of a nugget and a bit of a hidden gem is within our website, we have an area where we have recordings of previous online surgeries that we run.
You've recently been looking at the National Custom Self-Build Association survey data, and I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the survey, because this yearly survey always brings about some interesting insights into the decisions and actions that self-builders are making. Why was this survey important to the self-build industry?
Yeah, so each year, the National Self-Build and Renovation Centre, working in partnership with the National Custom and Self-Build Association, so lots of long names there, so NSBRC and NACSPA, we're really pleased because we had 759 responses, mainly from people on our database or NACSPA's database. So these are people who, at the very least, have expressed a strong interest in doing a self-build, but most of them are actually, either going through planning or space rounds, and they're doing live projects. We asked them a whole range of questions to understand who are the people doing projects, what are their main motivations, and what are the barriers and challenges that they're faced.
And what kind of patterns have you seen emerge from the review of this data?
So I can give you a few stats. So I won't go through the entire survey because it would take about 2 hours of our time, but I can tell you that the main motivations for people are, one, to achieve a higher quality home than a standard new build. And that comes as no surprise to us, really. It's confirming what we already know. The perception of new build homes in the UK is really, really poor. And people hear, the horror stories. And the thing is, the big developers, they're building for profit. They're building for their shareholders. And so they will build to the minimum spec and standards that they can legally get away with, whereas self-builders are building a home that they intend to live in for a long period of time, that they want to be proud of, that they want low energy bills, and so that is the number one motivation. And number two is building a home that's sustainable and genuinely environmentally friendly, which I'm really pleased about.
And what kind of patterns have you seen emerge while you were reviewing this data? Do you think these patterns are evident in the self-build industry now, or do you think we are going to start to see them slowly emerge?
Recent trends really is that huge awareness of sustainability and doing the right thing by both the planet, but also your wallet as well. And if you can design out energy consumption, then that's a great thing. The two biggest barriers that people are faced with, number one is planning. I think that's probably always been the case since I've been at the centre, gaining planning permission. So local authorities, planning departments are under-resourced. And number two is finding land, finding that perfect plot. So we run a brilliant one-day course on finding a plot and making sure it is generally a plot and it's not always going to remain a kind of expensive paddock. And there are a number of ways that you can find that plot. But so they're the big two barriers. 2/3 of the people that responded to the survey are in the age bracket of 55 to 74. So towards the later part of life. But we would like to see that age demographic reduce at the centre. I think the whole market would like to see it become more accessible and more affordable for a younger audience. And there is a product on the way that the government is launching called the Help to Build scheme. It's very similar to the Help to Buy scheme that you might be aware of. And it is designed for first-time buyers, builders who want to self-build. And then in terms of how people build their homes, Frame Technologies will be pleased that the number one building system is timber frame. 24.3% of our responses were telling us that they were going to be building with timber frame. The top four are timber frame, then prefabricated timber panel. Timber actually is in the top two. Traditional masonry at 14%, and then ICF, so insulated concrete formwork that you might have seen, that's at 11.2%. On our survey, 17% was still undecided. So that it's perfect for them to be able to come to the centre and see those different cross sections of the different examples and understand the pros and cons of each, and then make their decision.
So over the course of your time at the NSBRC, Harvey, I am sure that you've seen lots and lots of self-builders, obviously, at various stages of their journey, so you have an insight like no one else. I was wondering, what advice would you give people who are considering a self-built home?
Just research, really, because you want to get this right. This is probably going to be the most that you ever pay for in your life, and you want to get it right. So do as much research and information gathering as you can, whether that's visiting the centre, picking up self-build magazines, finding advice and forums on websites, just to just be a bit cautious with the forums that you will get self-appointed experts. Make sure you're talking to the real experts that really do have the qualifications and the experience behind them. Remember why you want to do it in the first place. So when you're doing that research, you are going to certainly initially get bombarded with lots of information and advice, and don't get distracted and lose sight as to what are the real reasons that you want to self-build your own home. And finally, we have a principle here at the centre: get the fabric right. So fabric first. So it's much better to invest your budget in insulation and building as airtight and efficient property as you can than installing a lot, really expensive bathroom, kitchen, renewable technologies, because they can be put in afterwards if you haven't got the budget to do everything up front. It's very difficult to retrospectively install better installations first. So research, remember why you're doing it, and fabric first. Just remember that the National Self-Build and Renovation Centre is a completely free resort. And everyone is welcome, and we are open Tuesday to Sunday. What we find is if people find us at an early stage in their project, they will come back multiple times, and it is not unheard of that people have been 12, 15, 20 times during that kind of 2-3 year window, which is the typical time period of a self-build. And I'll leave you with this thought, really. So going back to our survey, we asked a question on the cost of living. And what it shows me is how resilient self-builders are. So 45% of people that responded said that they weren't affected by the cost of living and they were carrying on with their project. But of the other half, 55% who were, only 1.4% had decided to abandon their projects. What the others were doing was just making some changes. And one of the big changes they were making were they were installing more energy saving measures. So the highest was a higher spec of insulation in their properties, which is brilliant because it means they really understand that they have got the opportunity, and it's ideal with a new build. You can design out your energy consumption, which is future proofing to be far more sustainable, and also future proofing against rising and uncertain energy costs as well. So we know that self builders are a really resilient bunch, and just use places like the centre to ask as many questions as you want to. And what you will find is everyone that works in the self-build sector, they will be encouraging, they are keen to offer information, and actually if they can't provide the service or the product that you need, they will recommend you to go and talk to someone that can. So that the whole marketplace is a really friendly group of people that work within the sector. And I know that, having worked in it for a number of years, people are very happy to help each other and help individuals that are going on this journey. And you will end up with a home that is cheap to run, looks beautiful, and you're really proud and happy to live in. And that's the main reason for doing it.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Harvey, and all the best for adding the final finishing touches to the October show.
Thanks so much, Melissa. It's been a real pleasure to have this conversation. I hope that people find it interesting, and love to see you all at our show in October, 13th and 14th of October. Free tickets on our website.
We are days away from the October show, which is taking place on Friday the 13th and Saturday the 14th of October. It's held over 2 days, and it has an unrivaled lineup of exhibitors and experts, and they'll all be on hand to share their advice. It's an unmissable event for anyone thinking of self-building or renovating their home. Frame Technologies MD Simon Orrells will also be presenting at the show. His presentation on how to get the best value for your self-built home will take place on Saturday the 14th of October in the Sovereign Theatre at 12:30 p.m. And he'll be showing you why self-builders need to get the best value for their project, and how timber frame can achieve that for your self-built home. So whether you're trying to reduce the carbon footprint of your home or reduce the energy costs, you'll find out how timber frame delivers the best value for your project. If you'd like to know more about building with timber frame, you can head to the Frame Technologies website. That's www.frametechnologies.co.uk. On the website, you can find out more about Frame Technologies, what they do, and their 3 technology options from the TechVantage series. If you've already decided you want to build in timber frame, getting a quote from Frame Technologies could not be easier. Depending on how far you have progressed, there are 2 different types of quotation that Frame Technologies can provide to give you an idea of your self-build cost. If you're in the early stages of your project and you have not yet decided on budgets and building solutions, Frame Technologies can advise you accordingly based on pre-planning drawings alone. This is not a final quotation, but the expert team can provide an indication of the costs for your build. If you have progressed further through the build process, Frame Technologies can provide a quotation based on approved planning drawings, proposed U-values, airtightness targets, timescales, site conditions, and access. To begin the quotation process, simply send your drawings and supporting information by email. Frame Technologies accepts drawings in both DWG and PDF formats, and the email address is enquiries@frametechnologies.co.uk. We look forward to hearing from you soon.